Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I am talking about Frostgrave and how to get into Frostgrave quickly with the least amount of prep time and with the least money spent, right? And I think the reason why I'm talking about this is I think there are some really special things about Frostgrave. So Frostgrave is a fantasy skirmish war game, and in my take, it is the fastest and cheapest. It's the cheapest to play and the fastest to get playing war game that I've ever seen by far. So Frostgrave has some really unique aspects. The author, Joseph A. McCullough, did a great job with the structure of the game. So the Frostgrave is about this city called Felstadt. And Felstadt was a magical city a few hundred years ago. It froze over, and then at that point, it is now hundreds of years later, and there was a really warm winter, and that Felstadt is unfreezing. And so there are portions of the city that are being exposed, right? Now, Felstadt was just chock full of magical goodies and treasure, right? And so what's happening now is bands of adventurers, war bands specifically, wizards with hired adventurers, hired thieves, hired thugs, hired archers. You know, there's a full line of soldier types. So wizards, their apprentice, and then their soldiers are going in and they're scrambling into Felstadt to grab all the treasure, right? And so basically, once you realize that, what Joseph A. McCullough did is he really took the existing structures and took those parts and made them playable in a new format. So the structure that he's talking about, these war bands, these are just Dungeons and Dragons adventuring groups. That's all they really are, right? And because the game, rules as written, it's essentially 1 to 10 adventurers and thugs and thieves. So that's really maybe 2 or 3 player characters, and in addition to that, their cohorts or their followers, right? So it's really kind of interesting, and also because your army, like in Warhammer 40K, this would be called an army. Here it's called a war band. Your war band is small. It's very easy to get into. So now, because you could use any 28 millimeter miniatures, there's ways to do this, right? So one of the reasons why I'm so over the moon about Frostgrave, and I really am, I'm just so delighted with this game because I really get excited about value. And the Frostgrave book is $25, and so that means you can buy one for yourself, you can buy one for a friend, and you're still like $10 short of most other war game rule books, right? So the barrier to market to get in and play is very, very low, right? And so one of the things I thought was really interesting is the next thing is you need 28 millimeter miniatures, right? But it does not say that you need to paint them, right? And so that opens up a lot of options, right? So the first option right out of the gate, and I just wanted to call this out for other people like me. So I am very, very interested in wargaming, the hobby itself. Warhammer 40K, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Malifaux, King of Wars, The Hobbit, the Battle for Five Armies. There are many many fantasy war games, right? But the thing is, I don't paint, and I spent about $80 on Citadel paints. Tried to get into it, found I'm just not a good painter. I'm not good at this, right? And I also don't really have time, right? So the great option for Frostgrave that's completely legal, rules as written, completely legal, rules as written, is to use Dungeons and Dragons miniatures, right? So Dungeons and Dragons miniatures, they will have every single character that you need for Frostgrave 10 times over, right? And if you need an archer, if you need a thief, and they will look exactly like what they need to look like, because the archetypes for Frostgrave come straight from Dungeons and Dragons. In addition to that, the Dungeons and Dragons miniatures game is well over 10 years old. So you could buy current miniatures, you could buy used miniatures. And what's even cooler than that is not only can you buy the new and the old, but because they've been made for so long, there are some that are literally like 3 for $1 that are just common as dirt and that anybody can get. But let's say you want something really special, right? And like then you can also get really high-end, highly collectible Dungeons and Dragons miniatures that are really specific, right? Because there are hundreds and hundreds. I think there's probably over 1,000 unique models within the Dungeons and Dragons miniature line. So it is a just perfect pairing with Frostgrave. The only issue is you have to find a local gaming shop that still has them, right? They're often just sold in bins, right? Or what you need to do is you need to go online and grab a few. Either one, right? The second option for playing Frostgrave very quickly and for very little money is there's another option that is really, really nice, very fast. Now this second, and that is the Paizo Pathfinder pawn set boxes. So these come in these boxes. They're just like the old Dungeons and Dragons white and red boxes and the blue boxes, exactly the same size, right? And they're very robust. And what they give you is they give you cardboard cutouts that are scaled exactly to 28 millimeter scale, right? They even have small, medium, and large bases. And so if you pick up any of the, you can pick up the NPC Codex box, you can pick up the base set 1 box, you can pick up the bestiary box. Actually, not the bestiary box. You can get that second for your Pathfinder bestiary. But if you get the base set 1 or 2, or if you get the NPC Codex, you're going to get over 100 air quotes miniatures. So they're cardboard cutout, printed, and they actually show. And so there are literally wizards and archers and thieves, and every single archetype within Frostgrave is represented right there. So like this is like pairing a good wine with a good dinner. You know, like these two things are beautifully paired together. Now there is a caveat on this second idea. So rules is written for Frostgrave. You can get D&D Dungeons & Dragons pre-painted mini, walk into any LGS and play day one, right? And nobody should balk at you, right? And this is a big deal because LGSs can get really squirrely about what you're playing on their miniatures tables, right? They can be very, very specific, especially if they're anywhere near a Games Workshop or if they have a Games Workshop ref. Because there are literally people that come in and say, oh, if people are playing with unpainted minis, or if they're proxying, or, you know, a whole bunch of other stuff, right? And you don't want to throw a flag. You know, Frostgrave is so new that you need to tread carefully when you go into your local gaming store, that you are careful about how you play your first few games, right? So when you go into an LGS, use the Dungeons & Dragons miniatures. If you have a very flexible LGS, right, which some LGSs are, local gaming shop, then what you could do is, or just on your own kitchen table, a great option, really fantastic option, is these Paizo Pathfinder box sets, right? If you buy one box set, which they're $40, right, you will have no less than like 50 miniatures with small, medium, and large bases. You will have enough to field up to easily 4 warbands, maybe as many as 6 warbands, right? And that means you can buy the $25 rulebook, you can buy the $40 Paizo box set, and you can play this game like in a week, because you need about a week to read the 120-page rulebook, right? Now it might seem like, oh, a week's a lot of time, right? Well, there are guys who spend 3 months painting one single army for Warhammer, right? So from the fantasy war game perspective, this is very fast, right? So you can spend $25 on the rulebook, $40 on one of these Pathfinder pawn sets, and then be able to field 4 warbands for $65, right? And that's in and out. And not only is that cool and exciting, but that's the way to go, because what you can do is you can get 4 of your buddies together, or 3 of your buddies together, let them try the game, let them see the game, and the game plays very quickly. It has a really beautiful game mechanic that, like, 1d20 roll, when one player is attacking another player, excuse me, So when one player is attacking another player, they can roll 1d20. If two miniatures are in base combat, that 1d20, they're rolling a d20 and their opponent's rolling a d20. That one roll, right? Two people rolling simultaneously, but it's one roll action. It actually determines who wins that melee and how much damage they do. That is a really elegant rule design, and it makes it run very fast. And when people see a fast, fun fantasy war game, they're gonna be enamored with it, right? A lot more than any of the games I talked about earlier. Frostgrave, I really believe Joseph A. McCullough just sat down and said, I'm gonna fix every major problem of the fantasy wargaming hobby in one game, and was successful at that, which is brilliant. So you can go ahead and, $65, you could be playing multiple games of Frostgrave within the second week, right? And you can let people see it, and then if they get excited, there are really 3 new levels of play, right? That you guys can continue playing with what you have, never buy a single thing, and get 20, 30 games of Frostgrave in a year, and then shove it in a corner, forget it, right? That's one level of play, and for $65 you'll have gotten your money's worth, right? Or if even one of those players is like, oh my goodness, I see exactly what this is, then they're going to jump in and they might buy the D&D miniatures. Then you can both play at your local game store without any, that's an easy on-ramp. You guys continue to play together with figures that are even more robustly looking like what they should look like, right? That are fully painted and that are visually compelling, right? So that's the second level. And then there's the third level, which is, and this is my point. Frostgrave ends where every other fantasy war game starts, right? If you want, you can build out a war band, right? You can get Bones figures, Reaper figures, Citadel figures for every single member of your war band, and make your war band look exactly the way it should look, and custom paint them so that they all have the same matching uniform, right? That's pretty awesome. You can really blow it out and make sure it looks like what it really should look like, and make it as awesome as it should be, right? And that could take months, and then you can enjoy the hobby of painting. But the nice thing though is, if you got one person in your group who loves to paint, and one person in your group who's horrible at painting or really doesn't love painting, then both of those people can be managed, which is great. And so Frostgrave is really a fantastic game. I'm just so enamored with this game. Give it a try. So my suggestion: Frostgrave with the Paizo pawn set boxes. Take care, everybody.